Hello everybody, good morning, welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news as we talk Zirkzee leaving United, Ugarte leaving United, Semenyo leaving United. What's Bruno's release clause? United looking to sign 3 players in January. Is it all spin? Is it all true? Is some of the criticism around Amorim unfair? People getting on his back for saying yesterday about the younger players, calling them entitled. Is he turning his back on the youth policy when you listen to what Sir Alex Ferguson had to say yesterday? Lots to get into. It's a big day today as well. I've got a massive amount of watch-alongs to do on That's Football. It's the last big weekend before Christmas, so I hope you're all ready for that. And we're looking forward to it. Kun says spin, spin, spin. Well, me and Cobby have been working on a T-shirt design. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Let's not go down that route. Let's not go. You know what? Actually, it says just kiss it, and it was from last year. And it was obviously after we'd won the FA Cup. Might be the year before. So there's mistletoe above the FA Cup, and there's Semenyo. I didn't even know we did this. You can't buy it, so we're not. It's nothing like that. It was just I was going through some old Christmas jumpers because I'm going to change them for every watch along I do today, just for a bit of festive fun. And I couldn't even remember us doing this one, so I thought, you know, I'll wear it for the banter. But look, at the end of the day. You know, Semenyo in that FA Cup final not that long ago was very good. People forget the good player there. I was listening to Ben Jacobs last night, actually. I think he did a podcast with Alex Goldberg, and he was saying that Man United are looking for between 40 and 50 million pounds for Semenyo. Do you think that's a good price? Because I think that's terrible. I sort of touched on this yesterday. There was a time where we wanted 60 for Garnacho. We got 40. There was a time where we could have took 70, 80 for Semenyo. We're now looking at 40, 50. Whatever way you look at it and whoever you want to blame, we're losing money on these players. No, we're losing talent. You know, they shouldn't be leaving. They should be here for the next 5, 6 years, you know, building a team with United. That's the sad thing. But not only are they not doing that, we're then losing money on them as well. Something is going very, very wrong at Manchester United. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But I want to talk about this first because there's a few stories this morning. Now, big developments mainly around Zirkzee and Ugarte a little bit. Obviously, mainly we've mentioned there. Bruno's release clause we'll talk about. But I think that where we are this morning is that Zirkzee leaving Man United in January, which I know will upset a few of you. It upsets me a little bit. Is highly likely, especially if we follow through on the Semenyo deal. But feedback generally is that Zirkzee is now open to leaving Man United because it's very obvious that he's not part of the first team plans. And also, it's very obvious that Man United are looking to bring Semenyo in, which is a big up yours to Zirkzee. So he is definitely looking at his options in January now. Remember, this is a player that's only been here 18 months, and from that very first month we signed him, he was linked with leaving. It's been a very weird time with Zirkzee at United. I've never ever known this before, where you buy a player and then from minute one they're always being linked with a move away. But it looks like January it could come to pass, and I suppose ultimately it needs to happen because we can't have a player that just is never settled, is always being linked with going. So I'd rather he went than we carry on with this for another year or two. I don't think he's had the best rub of the green. I don't think that, you know, it's benefited him that he was a Ten Hag signing, and really Amorim is quite ruthless when he doesn't rate people. But he has got a lot of interest and Roma really do want him. So look, I think that the problem with this will be, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this, we've got a story about Ugarte in January. There's a story about a left-back from Sheffield Wednesday, which I thought was a bloody joke. Apparently, we're trying to sign a left-back from Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah, Harry Amas won Player of the Month there and is their left-back, but we're trying to buy a young left-back from Sheffield Wednesday. I know. We'll come to it in a minute. But the point is, we might be signing a left-back from Sheffield Wednesday. Ugarte could be going. Zirkzee could be going. A midfielder could be coming in. And obviously Semenyo could be coming in. So you could be looking at and Semenyo as well. So you could be looking at a scenario where there could be 3 in, 3 out, or 2 in, 2 out. And that becomes, sound like a bloody owl. 2 in, 2 out. More like twat. I'm talking about United. But we could be on the cusp of quite a dramatic, impactful January transfer window. And I'm on board for that. You know, you can definitely moan about the state of this football club. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's a joke. But a January transfer window is only a month. And if you could get 2 in, 2 out, then I'd be very happy with that. I mean, we're not going to solve everything in January. Nobody expects that. But to do nothing is to stand still. And we need to move forward. So, you know, what worries me is it's Christmas week, then it's New Year week, and then it's January transfer window open, which hopefully will be very busy. There's certainly a lot of games. But the real issue is, are we being played as we've been played many times over the years, or are we genuinely doing the thing that reality dictates? Like, are we actually going to move some players on and move some players in, which is what needs to happen, you know, desperately? Or is it the normal play with the fans to keep them positive at a time? And, you know, I don't know. I don't know. What's your opinions on Yoro, says Marley? I will come back to that one. One Punch Code is flirting with Emily Derry, saying it's a nice name. She's not even done a super chat yet. Anyway, my point is, do you believe that we are going to be active in January, or do you think we might be being played? Because ultimately, Zirkzee to Roma can happen, Semenyo to Man United can happen, Mainu or Ugarte leaving can happen, and Conor Gallagher or Ruben Neves can happen. So 2 in, 2 out, back again, the owl, it can happen. Quite straightforward. And what I mean is, they're obviously you need a bit of money, but they're not difficult. Roma do want Zirkzee. Napoli do want Mainu. Ruben Neves and Conor Gallagher will move in January. Semenyo will move in January. So all these deals can be done. It's not like we're walking into the January transfer window going, we need 2 in, 2 out, and we've got no one who wants to buy our players and there's no one available. Like, this is quite straightforward. And if we do it, it's a big transfer plan and it's a big boost for Amorim. If we don't do it, we're just being played. And I suppose that's the balance as we work through all the stories. But as Emily Derry says, perfect timing. After all these stories, a quiet January would be a major letdown. Well, you know what? There's fantastic groups like the 58, the Red Army, that do brilliant things around the fan base and, you know, and leave them to that because they know what they're doing. But in relation to social media, community feel, I think we play our part. And I do think that, like, obviously results will take care of themselves, but we mustn't be dictated to by results. If we lose tomorrow, there's going to be a load of pressure on Amorim again. But then if we beat Wolves and we beat Leeds and we beat Burnley, people will go, that's 9 points, we're back in a race for top 4. We need to be almost... Results will take care of themselves, and we'll do the watch-alongs and we'll watch the games together and we'll do the player ratings and we'll have the reactions. Nothing can stop that. But I think we need to drive a very steady course here. January, absolutely, as Emily says, we can't come out of January without some significant movement, because it's not even about the rest of this season. It is, because we need European football, but it's also, we're on a journey, and if we're standing still, we're not moving. We know there's a long journey ahead, and it's about how much ground you can... It's a bit like, you know, have you ever played What's the Time, Mr. Wolf? And you have to, you know, they turn their back on you. The wolf turns their back, and it's how close you can get to them. And if they turn round, I think you're eaten. But the point is, you can move when they don't turn around. That's like United. We can't just stand still. We've got to move now. And I agree with Emily. I think, like, I'm certainly going to be vocal about it over the next 6 weeks. What are we doing in January? What are we doing in January? Because it's not an option to just do one. It's not an option to do nothing, and it's not an option to do, you know, just one deal. We have to move, certainly. Ryan says it took 7 weeks to sign in Burmo. January will be quiet. Well, look, this is why. Let's just run through every deal, because every deal's got an update this morning. So Zirkzee, Roma, the feeling is he wants to go. They definitely want him. A deal could be done. It probably would be a loan with an obligation to buy, if we're being completely honest. But that clears room for Semenyo. On Semenyo, mixed reports. There was an article in The Guardian yesterday saying that he would favour a move to Liverpool, then Man City, then us. Liverpool haven't entered the race yet. Man City might not enter the race, so it still could be us. Talking about the structure of the deal, the release clause is around £65 million, but there will be some negotiation around how that is paid. Essentially, Bournemouth will want to do a deal with whoever can give them the most money up front. And remember, there's a January the 11th deadline on this so that they can go and spend the money. Manchester United need 3 things to happen. They need Semenyo. They need Man City and Liverpool not to be in the race so that we're at the forefront. We need Semenyo to want to come to us, and then we need to negotiate with Bournemouth quickly. There's a lot. I look at that deal and I listen to what Ryan says there. What worries me about the Semenyo deal is, Mbeumo says, I'm not going to Arsenal, I'm not going to Newcastle, I'm not going to Spurs, I want to go to Manchester United. And we then spend 7 weeks negotiating with Brentford to give them the £65 million they wanted in the first place. Even though Mbeumo wanted to come to us, we couldn't drive the price down. So if Semenyo's got to want to come to us, if he wants to come to us, we're then going to be in a position where we try and drive the price down with Bournemouth, but we've only got between now and the 10th of January to do it. I think the price might be the biggest issue, you know. That might be the biggest issue. But look, that's where we are with Semenyo. We're in the race. Have we got the money? Does it impact buying a midfielder? Look, I'll be honest with you. If we buy Semenyo and we don't buy a midfielder in January, I think we made a mistake. I like the player, but we made a mistake in the summer. We should not have bought Mbeumo and Cunha and not got a midfielder. And I like Mbeumo and Cunha, so I'm going to be consistent on that. The nuance of argument, I think, is very important. It's a bit like what Amorim said yesterday about the young players being entitled. Some people have reacted to that and said, oh, I don't like the way he speaks about the youth. I think Andy Mitten, there's some tweet or something today that some people are getting on his back about. I haven't read the article, so I'm not going to say any more than that. But I don't have a problem with what Ruben Amorim said yesterday. I have a problem with sometimes not using the youth, but I haven't got a problem with him calling out entitlements in the squad because it is there. And I think the same thing about the transfers is that, you know, if we sign Semenyo, good, but if you don't buy a midfielder, bad. We have to do that. So Zirkzee out, Semenyo in, could happen. My problem is, if we don't get Semenyo and we tell Zirkzee he's staying, you can't treat players like that. I mean, Zirkzee's head at the moment is, I'm going to Italy, they don't want me, they're buying Semenyo. If we don't get Semenyo, we're going to say to Zirkzee, you're staying. I mean, this is... I don't actually... I think that, just for a very, very, very quick minute, I think this is somewhere where we go wrong as well. I think we've got so many people running this football club who really just don't get Manchester United or probably football. There's no understanding of, you know, culture or standards or discipline or professionalism, because how can you demand, as we said yesterday, how can you moan about players going on social media to express their feelings when week in, week out, you're asking them to do social media for the club expressing their feelings? How can you demand loyalty and professionalism from players when the club doesn't behave like that themselves? What I mean is, if Zirkzee wants to go to Roma because we want Semenyo, and then the Semenyo deal falls through and we say you're not going to Roma, how can we moan about upsetting players when we're literally doing that sort of thing ourselves? It's the same with Manu as well. Manu wanted to go in August, you're not going anywhere, and then you don't play him. And then you wonder why he gets frustrated. And if we don't let him go in January, what are we doing? And you know, it's cause and effect all the time. So, look, it'd be very interesting if we don't get Semenyo and what we do with Zirkzee, because we're happy to let him go if we get Semenyo. And you're messing around with the player's head there. Chip says, thanks for your super chats, actually. There's a few people, I just want to catch up on these before I talk about the midfield. Chip says, a couple of weeks ago, we were told it would be a quiet January. Now, after 2 points from 9, we're spending £100 million. Feels like spin, prepare to be disappointed. Well, this is what I mean about results, Chip. Newcastle on Boxing Day, Villa tomorrow, difficult games. If we get good results out of them, you've then got Wolves, Burnley, Leeds. I don't know whether we spend in January. So, you know, I'm not saying I want us to lose and drop points, but I do acknowledge what you're saying about results drive stories. Hear me out, Mark, says John. Why Amorim does not stick with his formation 3-4-3 with Bruno, Cunha, Sesko on the top, Manu, Ugarte, centre mid? Changing tomorrow kind of worries me, says John. Well, I did the preview last night. I don't think he should go to a back four. I think the 3-4-3 actually suits us better without Ahmad and Mbeumo, but, you know, who knows? Who knows what will happen? Dave says, I don't think we're going to get Semenyo. He's in demand, and the last thing he will want is to be Delo's wing-back understudy. We need a midfielder and an injury-free centre-back. Thank you very much for that. I've got to say, on the centre-backs, Maguire's injury, again, is just been swept under the carpet. I mean, that's a long injury. He's been injured since Spurs. That was before the international break. So he's nearly 2 months. Maguire has started picking up a lot of injuries. I said this last season. You know, obviously we remember the goals against Liverpool and Lyon, but when you look at the last 2 years, Maguire has been injured a lot. I don't know why we're thinking about doing a contract with somebody that's not fit. And I'm a bit worried about De Ligt as well. Ewan says, apologies if you've covered this before, but do you think Semenyo suits Amorim's system? Great player. What position do you see him playing? I think he's a little bit like Mbeumo. Does Mbeumo suit Amorim's system? I think that Mbeumo suits a 4-3-3 better more than he does a 3-4-3. And I'd say the same about Semenyo. You know, you're buying. I remember a Portuguese journalist messaging us a year ago and saying the problem with Amorim's system is there aren't that many players that can play it, and you've got to get them. Otherwise, you are getting players that don't suit the system and trying to teach them the system, and what they've done good elsewhere won't be the same because you've got to teach them something new. And I think we're seeing that with Mbeumo, and I think we're seeing that with Cunha. Although Cunha has played a 3-4-3 at Wolves, to be fair. So no, I don't think Semenyo suits 3-4-3. I think he can be a good player in it, but it'd be better if you had Semenyo on one wing and Mbeumo on the other. Definitely in a 4-3-3. I think it's spin. Done that one from Jake. Oh no, we haven't done this one from Jake. He says, I think it's spin. Everyone's finished work for Christmas and we're told this the day after. Doesn't take a genius to look at the timing of this. Glazers out. Big Smokey says it's criminal if we sell Mainoo. Unrealistic, but if he goes, we need Wharton. But ideal, we need them both at the club. And Apok says it wouldn't be surprising if it's Ineos who are trying to force Mainoo out behind the scenes. It fits their admiration for Chelsea's pure profit model. Sarvesh says, to avoid buying new players, we played 18-year-olds consistently, and now we wonder why our players are entitled. We used to make fun of Arsenal when they used to struggle for top four with kids. Thank you very much, thank you very much to Sarvesh. And Amir says, hi Mark, happy holidays. Why not sponsor here in a channel? A free Man United t-shirt gets viral in thousands. Wear at Old Trafford. It'll be quite a statement. It's a good idea. It's actually a very good idea. I'd certainly wear one. Definitely. It's a good idea. Forget free bloody Kobbie Mainoo and free bloody Ahmad. We should have a t-shirt that we all wear saying free Man United. It's a bloody good idea. Very good idea. Someone will do it now. Anyway, let's move to the midfield. So we've spoken there about Semenyo. We've spoken about Zirkzee. Interesting story again this morning. Now, I'm not big. It's certainly not a Turkish delight. I'm not big when it comes to Turkish reports, but there has been more reports coming in this morning from Turkey about Galatasaray. You remember this a few weeks ago. So effectively, Galatasaray have held talks with Ugarte's agents and Manchester United. Man United have already communicated their asking price. No official bid yet, but interest is real from Galatasaray. This is coming in from Turkish reports. Look, I think I've always said this. I think with Mainoo and Ugarte, what's the difference in relation to their treatment? I mean, Ugarte barely plays. We spent £60 million on him. Mainoo barely plays. He's meant to be the next big thing. So the only reason Mainoo gets more discussion is because he's from the youth, he's British, and he's 20 years of age. And that's understandable. But I also look at it and say, Ugarte isn't getting game time either. And from his point of view, he may well be feeling the same. When am I going to get game time, etc. So, I mean, look, what my point is, it's just as hard to see a pathway to the first team for Ugarte as it is for Mainoo. It's very obvious that Amorim doesn't trust either player. Whether we'll move Ugarte on in January, I don't know. I mean, part of me thinks we won't do it, but then part of me thinks, well, there's so much talk around Mainoo, Bruno, Zirkzee, Semenyo at the moment. Why couldn't there be something going on with Ugarte in the background? The problem is that would be horrific for Mainoo, because if Ugarte goes, Mainoo's not going. So I can't see us moving two midfielders out and two in January. I mean, look, I personally think Conor Gallagher and Ruben Neves could be brought in January. Mainoo and Ugarte could be moved out in January. And I think that Ruben Neves and Conor Gallagher is a better balanced midfield too than Bruno and Casemiro. So, dream big. But obviously, we're not going to bring two midfielders in January because our priority is to bring in a Baleba in the summer. So the most we'll bring in is one, which means we can't let Mainoo and Ugarte go. But I do think at some point, probably in the summer, we will see Ugarte go, probably on loan, because we're not going to recover that money. No one's going to pay us that money. And that is a problem for Ineos, because there's a lot of players at United where, you know, the Glazer rimmers, Ineos rimmers, don't want to acknowledge it. They always look at signings and go, well, that happened on the Glazer watch. Well, no, Ugarte happened on Ineos. Ten Hag apparently didn't even want Ugarte. He wanted to keep McTominay. It was Ineos who pushed the Ugarte deal. So that's, unfortunately, and we've had these discussions a little bit, what's actually changed from the Glazers to Ineos. The win ratio is worse, and we're still doing bad deals, and we're still not doing what needs to be done. And, you know, I think for a little bit of time, every bad deal was a Glazer deal, and it wasn't Ineos's fault. But we're now at a point where, well, Ineos bought Ugarte. That's a £60 million loss. People are talking about Yoro, which I find incredible. So, you know, there are... I think Zirkzee was an Ineos signing as well, wasn't he? I think Ineos were here when we got Zirkzee. I'm pretty sure they were. So, you know, there are deals that Ineos have got their fingerprints on that are, you know, starting to look a little bit dodgy. So I don't see a way back for Ugarte. I'd love it if there was. I was actually quite excited about the signing. It made a lot of sense. But I don't know whether that was excitement and logic or desperation that we just don't ever solve the midfield problem. Ruben Neves wants to leave Saudi. He's available for £20 million. Conor Gallagher can leave Atletico Madrid, and we have held some talks there as well. We have an opportunity there. And ahead of a Semenyo deal or a Zirkzee sale, first and foremost, the priority has to be the midfield. You've got two opportunities in Conor Gallagher and Ruben Neves that make sense for a January signing. And you've got two opportunities to move players out to bring a player in. Because sometimes there's a player you want to bring in, but you can't sell a player, so you can't do the deal. We have got an opportunity to move Ugarte on loan or Manu on loan and bring in a Neves or a Gallagher. And it's a priority position. So, look, as I said, there's a lot of noise at the moment. It just depends how much you want to listen to it. There is the opportunity to bring two players in and move two players out in January. Now, I think United would be scared about that because it's January. But actually, I think a proper football club, we saw it in Man City last year. They brought three in, didn't they? And we've seen Chelsea do it in previous years. You can use January. It's not panic. It's not panic at all. You can use it. And I think United do need to use it. Mark, is Ugarte a flop, says I am, or does he get a chance until he plays in a real midfield pair? So far, he's never got a chance with Bruno there, says I am. Look, I don't want to turn it into a Bruno show because it seems to be a Bruno show all the time. But I've played the game and I've watched the game and I don't care what you say. Bruno is a 10, he is not a midfielder. And whether you're Casemiro, Ugarte or Manu, I'm very surprised we've not heard a Paul Scholes or maybe a Roy Keane or even like trying to think of midfield pundits who are prominent on like Match of the Day and stuff. I'm very surprised nobody said this yet because it's just so obvious. If you are Casemiro next to Bruno Fernandes, your job is a lot harder than if you're next to somebody like Conor Gallagher or Ruben Neves or Manu, because they are midfielders. Bruno is a number 10, and we all see his indiscipline. He's everywhere and nowhere. So, you know, we saw it on Monday. You know, Casemiro doesn't want to just sit there. That makes him redundant. He has to be part of the build-up. He has to get forward with his aerial ability. So Casemiro can't just sit there because he's actually a big threat from crosses. So he's also got quite a good right foot for crossing it in. So he's got to drift to the right to look to be whipping the cross in, which takes him away from the middle. He's also got to go up when it's free kicks or corners because he's a threat. So he's not always stood there in the midfield. And Bruno's definitely not. And that's why we get exploited. So it doesn't matter whether you're Casemiro or Ugarte. If you've got Bruno next to you, it's a very difficult job. It would be a very difficult job for Caicedo. It would be a very difficult job for, Tonali or Declan Rice. It's a hard job. I'm surprised it doesn't get mentioned because it's not really criticising Bruno. It's criticising the fact that we're playing a number 10 in the midfield and it leaves a lot of space. Now, the hipsters will say, yeah, one of the centre-backs has got to step into the... Well, that's not happening, is it? You know, that's like asking somebody to sprint when they can't walk. We're not actually very good at that. So I think, you know, there is no midfielder, not even Prime Kante, can run a midfield on his own. You need a partner with you. That's why a lot of teams play a midfield 3. Remember, we're playing a midfield 2. So, yeah, look, in relation to Ugarte, he's not had a very good season, let's be completely honest. But it's also not a very easy job when you come in anyway and you're playing next to Bruno Fernandes. I actually think that sometimes we would have been better off playing Casemiro and Ugarte. I actually think Casemiro and Ugarte were never the two that people spoke about. But when you think about it logically, they probably give us the best platform and the best defensive stability. And neither of them are really going to wander out of position. The reason he doesn't do it is because he wants those quick transitional balls. But that's just stylistically from Amorim. If I was in charge, I probably would give Casemiro and Ugarte a go at times where I just want to keep hold of the midfield and protect the defence and provide a bit of a platform just to play the simple pass into the feet of Cunha. Can you list the midfielders in the last 10 Premier League winning teams and send it to Ineos? They need to know what it takes, says Frank. And Island Boy says, I've got my Christmas jumper. I love it. Hung it next to the 99 from last year also. Where's Derek? Have not seen him in ages. Does he hate Christmas? I can see Derek. He's over there. I'll go and get him in a minute. I am says, to be fair, Mark, I now understand why Amorim plays Bruno in the midfield. I won the treble on FC 26 with Bruno in the midfield. He can tackle, dribble, pressure, pass, everything. Yeah, the trouble with FC 26, mate, is that Fred was bloody brilliant on FC 26 as well, and he's been past it for years. Idrissa Gueye is brilliant on that game as well. So don't judge players on what they're like on a game. So, yeah, at the moment, I would say that he is a bit of a flop, Ugarte. Yeah, I thought last season he wasn't, but this season he certainly is. Seth says, if we're going to get Semenyo, then 3-4-3. No, going back to 3-4-3. Like Ahmad, he will put Semenyo at left wing back. It's like asking the tiger to hunt after you take out the fangs. Good point, Seth. Thank you very much. And Stuart says, do you agree with Sir Alex that it will take 10 years to win the league, Mark? Loving your work. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to come back to that. And Rajaf's in the house. He said, for the love of God, how do we as the biggest club in the world end up with the dumbest owners? Buy midfielders. FFS. Semenyo is unnecessary. Thank you, Rajaf. Hope you're doing well this morning. And Dave the Brave says, Ivan Toney would be a smarter play, but when have our owners ever been smart? Just get me Gallagher or Neves and leave the circus for the summer. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. Just on the Sir Alex Ferguson comments, we did sort of speak about it yesterday, about how he said it could be 10 or 11 years before Manchester United win the league again. What I found way more interesting, and is probably more topical, because I don't look. It's 24 hours since Amorim's press conference, where he basically accused some of the young players of being entitled and cowards. If we're being honest, he said my door's open and they never come in, but they go on social media, and there's an entitlement in these young players. I think there's an entitlement in the entire squad, by the way. But this is what Sir Alex Ferguson had to say on his secret when rebuilding football teams. He said, I think my appetite was for young people and players. When I went to St Mirren, they had no money. The best thing I could do was sit at the coaching schools on Tuesday and Thursday with the young players, and then 5 ended up becoming internationals. Then I went to Aberdeen and continued that ethic. We won the European Cup without our own training ground, and 8 players were produced by the club. It was fantastic. When I went to United, Bobby Charlton was in the meeting and I said, I don't know why you have appointed me unless you give me the reins to produce young players. Bobby said, that's done. You've got the job. Bobby Charlton was a fantastic man. So, look, Sir Alex Ferguson hasn't done that on purpose. It's just a big coincidence. But Sir Alex Ferguson basically made it his obsession throughout his career to build teams with youth. It worries me a little bit that Sir Jim Radcliffe thinks that we can do that again, because Sir Alex Ferguson is a one-off and United are not that club anymore anyway. Everybody else has invested in their youth, and the way that you used to recruit young players has changed as well. You know, it's not the same anymore. So you can't just start going, we're just going to buy young players and be good again, because I think those days are gone. We won't have a class of 92 again. That's not going to happen. So what you've got to do is always be focused on your youth at Man United, and hopefully you bring 2 or 3 players through every 3 or 4 years, and that would be great. But we're not going to turn the tap on and rebuild the football club on youth. There's no fountain of youth that's going to happen. That's not going to happen because we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the personality, and we don't have the vision to do it. So youth is always going to be very important for Manchester United, but Ruben Amorim is correct. The culture that is in that football club at the moment means that if you want to be really harsh, Rashford, Greenwood, Mainu, Garnacho, how's that gone? Forget why it went wrong. It's gone wrong. And in a different scenario, all 4 of those players could be playing for Man United today. Rashford, Greenwood, Garnacho, Mainu could all be in our first team today. And they're not, for different reasons. Overarchingly, I would put it down to the Glazers, the football club that they've created, the mentality that they've created, and the culture that they've created. Because I think those 4 players at a different football club would be disciplined professionals, focused on their football, focused on Manchester United, playing week in, week out. And we've created this environment. We've created it. Not the fans, the club. So until you solve that, you will not have a tap of young players coming through. And that's exactly what Amorim was saying yesterday. So, look, I've been critical of Amorim in relation to some of his team selections. I've been critical of Amorim in relation to, how he sometimes approaches things. But he wasn't wrong in his interview yesterday. And I could have used that as an opportunity quite easily. But he wasn't wrong, was he? He was right. Call me Postman Pat. Just had about 4 big packages arrive. Don't worry, I'm used to handling big packages. Look, I think there's been a bit of... It's the way the world works. Somebody says something, that makes a lot of sense. A few hours pass. I'm finding a few holes in it now. The reality is, I think Amorim's right about that. I'll back him on that. I think he is right. I think there is an entitlement in our youth. There's some fantastic young players who have the right mentalities. I actually, you know what? In my experience of Harry Amas, I think he's got exactly the right mentality. I feel bad that he's been lumped into that because I don't think he's that lad at all. I really don't. I think he's done the right thing for his career to go to Sheffield Wednesday. I think he's looked decent when he's cameoed for Manchester United. I think he's on the right pathway with the right head on his shoulders. I don't think he's entitled. I just think it was, sort of like I'm not struggling at Sheffield Wednesday and probably, a bit of social media interaction because he was pissed off. And he is on loan at Sheffield Wednesday. I don't think Amas really did anything wrong, but it's the general... It's more about, I think when Amorim said there's an entitlement in the youth, I think he was more talking about what I was saying there. Why is Mason Greenwood not playing for Man United? Why is Marcus Rashford not playing for Man United? Why is Garnacho not playing for Man United? Why is Mainu not playing for Man United? They all came through the youth, and there's a problem there. And that needs to be analysed. And look, bloody Sir Jim brought Sir David Brailsford in to do the most irrelevant... What did Sir David Brailsford do for 6 months when he sat and did that strategic review? Did he lock himself in a door and say, I'm busy, and then just play Tetris or something? I don't know what he was doing in that room because there's so many areas that... I was on a watch-along last night for That's Football on the Bundesliga, and somebody was like, would you rather take control of the PGMOL or Man United? And I said, well, Man United, easily. But I could do both jobs simultaneously and improve both organisations within 2 days. There's just so many easy things that just hasn't been done. So I do agree with Amorim about the entitlement in the youth, but it's also in the entire squad. But it doesn't mean every young player is entitled. They're just part of a culture. If you go to work, I would always use this analogy, right? If I was starting at Man United tomorrow and I had to improve the culture in the football club, which I think is fundamentally one of the first things that needs to get sorted out. So if I went in tomorrow as the owner or the CEO, and I would say, look, we do need to spend money. We do need to sell players. There's a lot we need to do. But first and foremost, we need to get back to being Manchester United. We need to get the culture. The culture's wrong. We need to reset the culture. Now, if I go to work in a workplace and I've got loads of potential, but I'm not being coached, I won't get the potential out of me. If I'm somebody who's really, really hard working, but I go to work and people are allowed to arrive late and they leave early because that's what everybody does, I'm probably going to follow course. That doesn't mean I'm not talented and I'm not hardworking. I'm just in a culture where they don't develop talent and it's lazy. So I need to, as the owner, implement, right, you're in at this time and you're here till here. In fact, you'll be encouraged to do more. We're going to put this, this, and this in place to make you better. And this is how you're going to behave here. And they're just 3 strands straight away that, how have we not done that in the last 13 years? Because we haven't. You know, it's really easy to say, well, maybe Sir Jim and the Glazers have tried to do that. Bollocks. You've got players, brothers wearing T-shirts to Old Trafford. You've got players on social media doing stuff. I mean, these are piece of piss HR things to solve. They're so bloody easy because it's in their contract. And if you misbehave, you will get fined. You know, it's really easy to do. And you know what? I know people at Man United. I know people who've been let go by Man United. And the stories you hear about how bad it is, and it really is that bad. Like, nobody does anything about stuff. So there's no drive. There's no parameters. There's no boundaries. That's why players are doing it. And I'm not saying it's acceptable to do it, but there's no consequences. You know, you think about last Christmas, Marcus Rashford went to a school with Henry Winter and did an interview saying, I think it's time for me to go. Not been run through the club. I don't think the club even knew he was doing it. Cunha a few weeks ago was going to turn some bloody Christmas lights on. The club didn't even know he was going to do it. So they're little but big things. And the trouble is, if I've got a player who is going to go and turn on some Christmas lights and I don't know he's going to do it, he might turn up and turn the Christmas lights on and it might be fine. But while he's turning the Christmas lights on, someone might ask him a question about a player and he might say something. And then this is the thing. It's about parameters. It's about boundaries. It's about professionalism. It's not that I don't want you to go and turn the Christmas lights on, but who's going? We'll send somebody with you. Don't answer questions. Don't do this. Don't do that. It's just professionalism and we don't do it. And what worries me is that I could have said at the time, what a fucking joke. Why is Cunha going to go and turn some bloody lights on and the club don't know? It's not that deep. It's just turning a switch. But then you see the T-shirts. Then you see the entitlement. Then you see the Rashford interview last year when he was at the school. Everything's an opportunity for something to bite us in the arse and make us look bad. And that is why everything at that football club in the culture. I mean, I'd love to go in and do it. I'd do it part-time. I'm sure most of you would. You've got to be a bit of an arse to do it, but I don't care. If you don't like it, people go, well, what if the players don't like it? Fuck off. What was that you said? You don't like it? Piss off. This is the way it's going to be. This is the way it's going to be. Follow me into the trophy cabinet room. Look at the pictures of Sir Bobby Charlton and Dennis Law and Brian Robson. Look at those trophies. Why are they legends? Why are those trophies there? Can you figure it out for me? Why are they legends of this football club and why did they win all these trophies? Because they weren't wearing T-shirts. They weren't turning Christmas tree lights on without asking the club. They weren't on the piss the night before training. You know, they weren't fucking on social media doing, they weren't doing all of that because they were focused on this football club. And it's so easy. So many clubs are successful today because they follow the Sir Alex Ferguson model at Man United. Typically, Man United don't follow the fucking Sir Alex Ferguson model. I digress, but look, I do agree with Amorim on that. I think he's right to call out the entitlement because it makes you take a deep breath. It makes you go, wow, that's a big statement. But is he wrong? And we want honesty. You know, Ranić was the same. Ranić said about the open heart surgery, The journalists hated it. The players hated it. The club hated it. But the fans loved it. Why did the players hate it? Why did the journalists hate it? Why did the club hate it? Because it was the truth. They can't handle the truth. Random, but do you consider Ronnie homegrown? Ronaldo? No. No, because he didn't come through the youth. He was bought as a teenager and went straight into the first team, Rajaf. It's like Lenny Yoro. He's not homegrown, even though he's a teenager. Island Boy says, on the PGMOL, why don't all the clubs come together and show all the errors these refs make compared to other refs in Europe, as talking to Webb goes nowhere, strength in numbers? I think it's a distraction tactic by Man United to do it as well. Andy Atherton, I'm loving the show this morning, by the way. I'm feeling very festive today. Ho, ho, ho. It's a big day on That's Football. We've got 3 watch-alongs. I'm doing Chelsea, Newcastle. Please, Newcastle win or probably a draw. We don't want Newcastle catching us up, and we don't want them getting into good form ahead of Boxing Day. So a draw. Liverpool, Spurs, draw. And then Arsenal-Everton. It'd be funny if Everton won. Hi, Mark. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Semenyo and Ahmad as wing-backs excites me, but without disciplined midfielders, we will continue to play basketball, says Andy Atherton. I mean, look, we need a midfielder because we need a midfielder. But you make a great point, Andy. Imagine the 3-4-3 with Semenyo on one side, Ahmad on the other, Cunha and Mbeumo as the 10s, and then Sesko, right? That's very attacking. And then you put Bruno in the midfield. Oh my God. So we've basically got 4 defenders, 3 of which are centre-backs. It will get absolutely... It'd be entertaining to watch for some. I'll be having a bloody heart attack. I'll be like, I can't deal with this. I can't be dealing with 5-5 every week. I can't. What's the crack, says Rub. It's good crack. He's Irish, I think. Or it's an Irish saying. So I tell you what, shout out to my favourite Irish pub, the Hairy Lemon. Hopefully I'll get over there again next year. I was looking at their Christmas opening times. They close at 6 o'clock on Christmas Eve. What's going on in Dublin? Is there something I don't know? I can't remember that. What's that all about? I don't know. I'm not even doing Irish there. 6 o'clock on Christmas Eve they close. What's that about? Bloody island, Dublin. The pubs close early on Christmas Eve. I know they don't open on Christmas Day, which I think is a big faux pas. If you've got a pub in England, it's a big thing. You open at Christmas Day, even if it's for a couple of hours. But 6 o'clock on Christmas Eve. I suppose Dublin might be quite quiet on Christmas Eve. Having said that, Christmas Eve was always a big night out when I lived in Ireland. I just can't remember whether we went to Dublin or a house party. I was gone. I used to love going down my local pub on Christmas Eve about 2 o'clock, and I wouldn't leave till about 2 o'clock as well. I wasn't there for a minute. I was there for 12 hours. But Christmas Eve in your local, always good. Although you used to get the people who'd gone to university coming back and giving it the big one about how much they'd changed. I didn't go to uni, you see. So they'd sort of like, they'd sort of look down at you in a way. But who's laughing now? No, I'm joking. Hi, Mark. Merry Christmas to you and your family, says Andy. So it's a bit of an after show and a morning show there. Yeah, we won't go there. I am going to have a few drinks today, though. It's almost like our Christmas special day today, but although the United Stand one is at 10 a.m. No, we'll have a proper Christmas special later next week. But for That's Football, it's quite a festive day today. Semenyo and Ahmad, as we've done that one. How are we going to develop youth when we fired everyone doing that job, says I am. And isn't the Premier League getting an extra Champions League coefficient spot, says Brian. Yeah, 5th place. We should get it. We should get it. Narnia Bridge, says I am. And Emily Derry's back. She says, the sad thing about United is that our tradition of developing youth goes right back to the Busby Babes and further, but that culture has been allowed to wither. Yeah, but you know what? I think a lot of people are trying to blame Amorim for not picking the youth, but obviously there's a problem in that football club that, he doesn't trust those players, where he did at Sporting. Look, I don't know what goes on in the under-18s, the under-21s, the under-16s. I don't know whether we've got young players walking around like they've made it because they're at Man United. I hope not. We'll never bring it back, but I think when you've got people like Gary Neville and David Beckham cleaning the boots of Mark Hughes and Brian McClare, that stops entitlement. That makes you realise where you are. Now, that's all stopped. Look, I remember years ago when I went into a job and we had some training before the job, and one of the trainers said, it was sort of like the beginning of woke. It was the early noughties, and they were like, when you start your job in whatever team you're in, you don't have to make the tea for everybody. You're as equal as they are. So if they try and make you make the tea, only do it if you're making a tea. Don't do it just because you're the newest on the floor. And I put my hand up and I said, well, I am going to make the tea. And they were like, what do you mean? I said, because I don't know how to do my job. So I'm going to be learning from them for the next few weeks at something I don't know what I'm doing. And I'll learn bad things, I'll learn good things, and it will turn me into what I think hopefully will be a good person at this job. But me making the tea a couple of times a day for everything they're going to give me, I don't think it's a bad idea. And it's sort of like we've ruined that world. We've ruined that world. I blame Simon Cowell and X Factor. Everybody thinks they can be everybody. You get some prat like Ollie Murs holding a microphone and he thinks he's bloody Elvis Presley because he thinks he can be. People forget hard work and talent and humility. So look, I remember I used to go to work in Birmingham and I'd get the train and you'd see lads in West Brom tracksuits who were obviously getting the train to West Brom, 15, 16-year-olds. And you could sense that smugness off some of them. And you felt like going, you're 15 wearing a West Brom tracksuit. One, it's West Brom. Also, they'll probably get rid of you by the time you're 18. I guarantee 4 years' time, you'll be wearing a Tesco outfit going to work, which is nothing wrong with that, but don't give it the Billy Big Bollocks in a West Brom tracksuit. And I think that is modern culture anyway, whether it's a West Brom tracksuit or a Man United tracksuit. You put that tracksuit on a teenager and they think, I'm it, because we give too much too soon. How you solve that problem in general is very, very difficult. But the people who get to the top predominantly are the people who work. I saw the picture of Ronaldo the other day. He's into his 40s. He's achieved absolutely everything and he still won't have a donut. He still won't have a Coke. It's just mentality. And some people get something and go, I'm on easy street now. Some people are multi-millionaires, billionaires, and they still get up at the same time and work really hard. And that's what you need at Man United. I think that's what Amorim was saying. We need to find these people because they are out there. There's fewer than there was 20 years ago because society has changed, but there are still people out there that regardless of position or wage will turn up and work hard. And United have attracted the wrong types for a long, long time. And if we've got that problem in our youth, then we need to work on that. What I would say to any young player at Man United is you are privileged, you are living the dream, you are 100%, in a great position. But if you want to achieve what people like Brian Robson and Roy Keane and Eric Cantona did, then you've got to get up and work harder than everybody else every single day, because nobody ever makes it. Because even if you win the World Cup, tomorrow the qualifying starts again. Until you've retired, you've never made it. So, and it's that mentality that we need at Manchester United. Isn't Roma close to signing Fulkrug? Also, if Zirkzee goes, we'll only have Sesko as a native striker. Yeah, well, that makes sense, Caleb. But ultimately, it's not what it's all about, is it? I think that Semenyo comes in as an attacker and Zirkzee goes out. Ollie Murs is catching strays, says Gypsy Dad. He'll love it. He's a troublemaker. Did you notice RF used your tweet in his video? RF. Rio Ferdinand. No, I didn't watch it. Palmer started the free Cobby message. Free Cobby could mean a variety of things, like sell him, play him, or could he be afraid to speak up? Says Spin. Don't know. We're running out of time here. It's been such a good show for a morning show. Just very, very quickly, this has been mentioned before. Man United have submitted a 450,000 bid for Sheffield Wednesday's Yisa Alao, who's 17. Mate, explain. I'm very rarely speechless. I don't even know what to say about this. This is from Chris Wheeler in the Daily Mail that Manchester United have submitted a $450,000 bid for Sheffield Wednesday's Yisa Alao, who's 17. I mean, it's just everything that's wrong with the football club, isn't it? Like, again, another teenager. And what is, I'm going to call this out today. Again, this is basically a cattle market. We're just buying up all this product to sell at a better price. We physically cannot think that the volume of 17, 18-year-olds we've brought in over the last 2 years are actually going to make Man United first team. I hate this. We've never been this. We are basically looking at Chelsea and Man City, and we are recruiting youth to nurture it for 2 or 3 years and sell it. It's a meat factory. There is no way these players are going to all be playing for the first team. This is just money making. This is what happens when you put Ineos and the Glazers together and their mercenary business approach. It's disgusting that they have their grips on Man United, but there's nothing we can do about it. But look, on sheer numbers, there's no way this many players are going near the first team. This is about buying talent, loaning it out and then selling it. This is what Man City do, right? You have a young player, you loan them to Southampton in the Championship, they do quite well, and Southampton give you 9 million. 450k to 9 million in 3 years is 8 million profit. This is what this is all about. This is not about, and there's so many people in our fan base that get really excited. Oh, it's the next Caicedo, it's the next Roberto Carlos. No, it's just a money-making machine. It's like a car salesman. That's what we're doing. And what really pisses me off about this is Sheffield Wednesday's left back is actually a Man United teenager on loan. And we're buying a left back from Sheffield Wednesday for 450 grand. It's symbolic of what the club are doing. This is not about buying players for the first team. This is about money. Absolutely. And yeah, I just wanted to talk to you very, very quickly about this. Bruno Fernandes, also in the Mail, has a clause in his contract that means club outside the Premier League can buy him for 56.6 million. I don't know what Man United were thinking about with this. I don't know why Bruno Fernandes has a release clause of 60 million quid. I just don't get it, because when Ineos came in, he was on 250 grand a week, and he was threatening to go to Bayern and all this bollocks, but they wouldn't have bought him, because they would have had to give us about 80 million because he was like 29 at the time. So we gave him a contract on 300 grand a week, and then we put a release clause in of 56 million. I mean, are we just stupid? He was on a long-term contract at 250 grand a week without a release clause. We give him a pay rise and a release clause. I mean, I just don't. I mean, look, 56 million pounds for Bruno. I don't think it's very good. I don't think it's very good. When you look at, as a number 10, Bruno Fernandes will get you goals and assists. 56 million pounds for somebody that can probably play as a number 10 for another 4 years. The problem I have with Bruno is he's not a midfielder. Harry Kane is 32 and he's still going to score goals. Bruno is 32 next year and he's still going to get goals and assists for another 3 or 4 years as a number 10. And we've got a 56 million pound release clause on him and we're paying him 300 grand a week. I just don't know why there's a release clause there. I don't know why we are absolutely shit at negotiations. Like, we should never have put that release. And does it apply to Saudi? It can't because they offered 90. But we shouldn't have a 56 million pound release clause for Bruno Fernandes. We've been absolutely bent over there by Bruno's agent. 250 grand a week, and his contract had years to run. Can have 300 grand a week and a release clause. So a pay rise for a release clause. Fucking hell. Idiots. Absolute idiots. We never should have done that. We shouldn't have done it because my issue with it is it makes him gettable for the European market. If he hasn't got a release clause, we can go, we're not selling you for anything less than 80, and the only place he can go is Saudi. But there might be a European club that fancies that. They might be. And that makes it hard. It does. Because I don't think he wants to go to Saudi. I think he wants to play in the Champions League next year. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Island Boy says, too much veal, get the experience. Daniel Derbyshire, thank you for being a member for 61 months. Fantastic show this morning, by the way. We've got through quite a lot, but there were some really good conversations in there as well, which is the way I like it when we drift to other things. So I really appreciate that. I'm back live in an hour or so for the start of the Premier League watch-along marathon on That's Football. I don't know how it's going to work tonight because Arsenal are playing at 8 o'clock and I'm doing Liverpool Spurs at 5:30. There might be a little... I will have an evening show. I just don't know whether it'll be a pre-record or what, but I will get something up maybe around 7:30. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. I'm on That's Football all day anyway. Just continue the conversation there. I'm going to have a few... I might get myself a bit of mulled wine on the go. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.